Welcome back, everybody. The first algebraic technique we're going to learn is how to move terms to different sides of an equation. If you remember from our last video, sometimes the variables we're trying to solve for have constants or other terms beside them, like this one, an unknown minus x is 2, or this one, an unknown plus 7 is 10. In order to solve these types of equations, we need to learn how to move these extraneous terms so we can isolate our variable. It seems pretty simple, right? And the truth is, it really is, and that's what we're going to learn about in this video. To move a term from one side of an equation to another, the only thing you have to do is simply add its inverse. What is an inverse? It's basically the number that's going to give you 0. Let's look at negative 4. The inverse of negative 4 is positive 4. The inverse of x would be negative x, and the inverse of 1 would be negative 1, and the inverse of y would be negative y. So let's take this concept and apply it to our first example, an unknown minus 1. To solve for this variable, what we need to do is to move this negative 1 to the other side of the equation. We do that by adding its inverse, positive 1. We add positive 1 to both sides. Negative 1 and positive 1 become 0. Positive 2 and positive 1 become 3. The x comes down, and there we have our solution. X is 3. Let's try another example. Let us say we have 7 added to an unknown is 10. In order to find out what our unknown variable is, we need to move 7 to the other side of the equation. We do that by adding its inverse to both sides. The inverse of 7 is negative 7, so that gives us 0. And 7 taken away from 10 is 3. If you add nothing to x, it's just x, which is 3. In fact, stop the video and practice moving constants on your own. Moving a constant back and forth like 3 will give you all the practice you need to master this technique. You may be wondering, how is it that I can even do this in algebra? If I'm adding and subtracting numbers from an equation, wouldn't this cause some sort of imbalance? And the truth is that adding and subtracting numbers from both sides of an equation has no real effect on the equation at all. How is this so? In order to understand, you have to understand a property in mathematics called the additive property of equality, which basically says if you have two equal quantities, they'll remain equal if you affect them in the exact same way. And what this means is that if you add or subtract any quantity from both sides of an equation, it'll remain true, and it'll have no bearing on the final value of your unknown. But just to be scientific about it, let's put this concept to the test. Let us say we start with two equal quantities, like 2 is 2. Now let's just subtract 1 from both sides. And there you have it. 1 is 1. Well, I hope this helped. In the next video, we're going to learn our second algebraic technique, which is how to deal with variables whose coefficients are not 1. See you next time.